Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we've got a great show for you tonight. Here we are already in closing the first week of July. It's hard to believe how fast these days are going. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or it's just the time itself, but anyways, we're on July 7th here, the first Thursday of July, and we've got a great show for you tonight. Going to start off, of course, with Coach's Corner, a little bit change of plans to what I originally had scheduled, and I'll explain that in just a moment here. And then a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be joined by the founders of ILDC, which is the International Long Drive Challenge, Rick Benoit and Bill Stark. They're going to be joining me here, just a sort of a recap of some of the things that they've been doing this year so far. And then they also have a new event coming out actually next week, I believe, as well. I think it starts the 10th, which is Sunday. I believe that is. And it's taking place in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to come on and talk about that as well. And a few other things. But as I said, we're going to start off with Coach's Corner. And just a quick note, I want to apologize to the listeners for the Tuesday morning show. This has happened 2 weeks in a row now. Ran into some technical issues with the program. And unfortunately, literally as we were going live on the air, we had a crash in the system, and it took the system down. And got back up momentarily, but then it started going down again. So we had to cancel this past Tuesday show. So apologies to the listeners out there, but also a special apology to LPGA Master Professional Deb Vangelo. She was the scheduled guest this past Tuesday with Cindy Miller and I, and unfortunately we had to cancel literally last minute. And the week before, the last 10 minutes of the show dropped as we were getting ready to wrap up. So got it all sorted out, and obviously I'm here tonight, so everything seems to be working well again. So again, I just want to apologize for that. I promise you we'll have things in good order for next Tuesday. But in the meantime, just remind everybody, of course, we are live on Golf Talk Live every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central or 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast. Go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, or just go to blogtalkradio.com and just type in Golf Talk Live up in the search key, and that will take you to the main page. And, of course, during the live broadcast, you'll see us right there front and center. But if for some reason you can't join us during the live broadcast, not a problem. Just go to that link I just mentioned and scroll down to the on-demand section, and you'll see the previously aired shows there, and you can listen to them at your leisure whenever it's convenient for you. But thank you for those of you that are able to join us live each and every week. We certainly appreciate it. If you want to speak or call in during the live broadcasts on Thursday nights from 6 to 8 Central, the number to call is area code 646-716-4667. Or if you want to email me questions or comments about the show, you can do so at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And if you're somebody that's interested, if you're in the golf business, whether you're an instructor or coach or mental guru, whatever you want to label yourself, if you're interested in coming on the show and want to share your thoughts and ideas with my audience, I'd be more than happy to have you and entertain that and get you set up in the mix. Right now, we're booked up for all of July and working on August, September right now, so there's still some time coming up before the summer finishes. Again, you can reach out to me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Update, of course, every week on Facebook. Go to facebook.com, search Golf Talk Live blog, that's BLLG on the end, and you'll see the page there. Or you can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO, and CEO, of course, is in capital letters. As I said, we had a special Coach's Corner planned for this evening, and still even a better Coach's Corner is going to be planned tonight. My good friend, Mr. Byron Casper, he's an international PGA member and also son of the late legendary Billy Casper. He's on the panel tonight. And another good friend of mine, Mr. Tim Kremer, he is the president and founder of Spirit of Golf, LLC. He's been on the show many, many times as well. Gentlemen, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thank you very much.
I know that was a long-winded introduction, so forgive me, but I had to get all that out there, and I especially wanted to apologize to the audience tonight, just for those that tune into the Women of Golf show on Tuesdays. Just ran into some technical issues, and it just, the one downside of technology, it's great and fantastic when it's working right, but when you have a few glitches in the hardware particularly, it can just make it for an unpleasant day, and it's my Tuesday was basically ruined, unfortunately. But nevertheless, we're here on Golf Talk Live Thursday night. So again, thank you everybody for joining me. All right, guys, here's what we're going to do tonight. I had something a little bit different planned, but what we're going to do, and Byron particularly because you had mentioned about the British Open. Of course, that's going to be next week, July 10th to the 17th at Royal Troon.
I have to correct you one moment, Ted. All
What's
of my
that?
Scottish and English friends would be rolling over right now if I didn't correct you, and if they're listening, because they like to have it called the Open Championship.
That's right.
Rather than the British Open, and I know it's
right.
funny, but it's them resting on their laurels for having it starting there.
You know what? You're right. It's funny though. I've gotten so used to over the years because it was always at one time it was always referred to as the British Open. But you're right. Some years ago they did correct that and change it to the Open Championship. So you're right. My apologies to your Scottish friends out there and anyone else listening in. You're right. Thank you for correcting that. But that's taking place next week. It's going to be at Royal Troon, and Byron, we want to talk about that. Some of the preparations that are going to be made. We'll also talk a little bit about what your dad did when he was getting ready to play in some of the events. But I want to start out with something just a little bit different. We're going to start off with the ladies here for just a second. Something kind of caught my eye, and Cindy and I were starting to talk about this on Tuesday morning before our mishap. And I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to sort of get your thoughts. And Tim, I'm going to start with you first, if you don't mind, and then Byron, I want you to jump in as well. This past weekend, of course, up in Portland, the LPGA ladies played at a tournament there. And, of course, Brooke Henderson, who's also a fellow Canadian, to me, of course, was the ultimate winner. That was her third win, I think, on the LPGA Tour. But something that was very interesting that caught not only my eye, but I think just about everybody that was watching, on number 17, just as she was getting ready to close out on Sunday, she hit really not a great shot on 17. But what was interesting about it was she was seen smiling and actually even joking as she was walking up the fairway, which caught a lot of the other announcers off guard a little bit. It was not the greatest shot that was hit, and a lot of players would be a little bit frustrated, especially even though she had a 2-shot lead, I believe, at the time, and only a couple holes to play. But Tim, what was interesting is obviously this is not normal reaction for most players, even an advanced player like as Brooke is. I want you to talk about why that's a good thing, what she did, and composing herself in that manner, and what can an amateur take away from her demeanor on that particular moment?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ted. And one of the things that we work on, or I work on with my players, is the concept of acceptance. And it's probably one of the most challenging skills that we can, mind skills that we can work on. By acceptance, I mean that once a shot has been hit, we don't have to like it. And, in fact, we never will like it. But the whole idea of getting over it quickly and efficiently in order to move forward is absolutely one of the most critical skills and not easy to do. What I see the difference between a lot of tour players and say, amateurs is that amateurs tend to have a very, very difficult time getting over something they don't like. And in the process, if they're lucky, can pull it back together for a hole or two or whatever. A tour player is not going to like it. But by and large, if they're skilled at the mind game at all, they're going to pull it together very quickly. And with the concept, I believe, of acceptance, it's like, done, let's go. And I think that's one of the most important skills that there is out there, is the ability to let go of unwanted outcomes. And again, that's not always an easy thing to do, and certainly it's a trained practice. But I highly, highly, highly encourage players to consider that concept, because without the ability to let go of unwanted shots, you're really revved up for the future in a way that you don't want to be.
Yeah, well said, Tim.
I would say I would almost say that could be used as an example for life as well.
Sure.
As far as not letting yourself get tied down with negative things happening in your life, so that you can be ready when the positive things happen.
Byron, I want you to add on that just a little bit. As a player, I mean, you've played at a competitive level, and obviously you've watched your father play over the years in competitive tournaments. And as I sort of reiterated in the first part of the question, that's not normal, even for advanced players. I mean, if I don't know if you saw any part of the tournament or not to know exactly what I'm talking about, but basically, and I'm not saying you expect a tour player to be throwing their clubs or something like that, but it was really, again, it caught the eyes of the announcers, and they were even surprised. To me, do you think that because she knew she was in the lead and there was a confidence in her game that day and that weekend, that helped her to have a more positive outlook going into, even though she might have been in trouble and might not have hit the best shot on 17, she knew she only had a couple of holes to play. She had at least a 2-shot lead, I believe, might even been a 3-shot lead. Is that confidence, do you think, taking over and allowing her to stay in that positive mindset? She knows she can get the job done, and she's just going to stay in that positive mindset?
I think that's really exactly it. I think that when you're playing really well, one bad shot or 2 bad shots don't have the same effect on you if your round has been up and down. So,
right.
I only saw the highlights, but, what I'm imagining is that she felt completely in control of her game, completely in control of her swing. And when she hit that bad shot, she knew what she had done wrong, and she knew it was an easy fix inside her own head. And so it was probably very easy for her to release that bad shot and go into the next with a different mindset. And, you mentioned that I'd played competitively, which I have in Europe. And, Ted knows me as a very honest person. But, I really wasn't that good of a golfer when I played competitively. I'm hoping to change that around a little bit when I get on the Senior Champions Tour in the next couple of years. But coming from a famous father who I think is still number 7 in the world for tournament wins,
right.
It was a high bar to set for myself. And now at the ripe old age of 47, I don't mind admitting that I was probably the worst tour player on the planet. But the one time that I won a Pro-Am in England, I had that same feeling. It didn't matter if I hit a bad shot. I was having such a great time that day with the people that I was playing with my brother-in-law who was caddying for me. That one shot really didn't have the same effect that it would in normal circumstances.
Yeah, well said as well, Byron. And you're right. Again, every player is different. And I think that one of the things that people have to understand, especially the amateur golfers out there, they've got to understand, they're not out practicing, they're not out playing at the same level that the tour pros. So they can't really, it's not a fair comparison. You can't expect if you're playing, once a week or once a month or maybe a couple times a month, and not, practicing much in between, expect to get out there and hit, great golf shots all the time. You're certainly going to hit your fair share of good ones, but you're more often not, if you're not out there, unless you're an anomaly and just have a pure natural rhythm and talent, you're going to have lots of ups and downs and challenges, so you have to be prepared for that. But it's how you prepare for these challenges that you're faced with, Tim, that's going to help them. And this brings me to the point I want to talk about tonight, is about focus. Now, there are 4 types of focus. We're going to sort of brush over them here a little bit. Tim, I'm going to get you to sort of expand on them a little bit, talk about it, again, from the emotional and mental side of things. And then, Byron, we're going to sort of put them in to perspective in play and how you would handle that specific focus. And the 4 focuses are this: a broad attentional focus, a narrow focus, an external attentional focus, and an internal attentional focus. I'm going to give you, and I know you guys know this, but I'm just going to, for the sake of the audience, just sort of give a quick example. And then, Tim, I want you to talk about the first one. For a broad attentional focus, we're talking about golfers that are essentially focusing on several things. For instance, that might be alignment of the club, the ball, and where, in case if they were putting, where to place the putt. They're looking at their intended target and so forth. So they might be thinking about 2 or 3 things. From I guess a coach's standpoint, what do you want your players really to be focusing on when they're sort of tapping into that initial broad attentional focus, Tim? What are you trying to get your students to think about when they're getting ready, whether it be for a golf shot or even a golf round? And what are you trying to guard against them overthinking?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess that I look at it probably a lot differently than most people. I believe great focus is the byproduct of the emotional state of mind, so that when we're in a good mood, we have the ability to really focus very cleanly and clearly and accurately. And when the emotions are all out of control and we're out of control and whatever, that's when the eyes get very rapid and thoughts get very rapid, decisions get very rapid. So I think the best way to learn to focus would be at the emotional tool, using the breath to really, really slow down enough so that we feel comfortable with our level of focus, and so that therefore the things that we're taking in, it's kind of like we're taking them in, we're observing them, and I'm not so much concerned as a coach what they're taking in. Most of the players I work with, and even in my playing days, I feel like really take in the good stuff, but I did it in a way that felt good. And by doing that, I guess that I felt like I was focused then in a way that I really liked being focused. I'm not sure that answers your question, but I just think the emotions are really what's setting up, to me, high states of mental clarity and focus.
And again, well said. No, that's exactly what I want. As I said, this worked out perfect tonight, Byron, as well, having you on board, because I wanted to be able to look at this from really both angles. And Tim, I know that you do play yourself in that, but I wanted to sort of from a coach standpoint and from a teacher standpoint, and then I also really wanted from a player standpoint. So this sort of works well into the wheelhouse. So Byron, again, I want to pose this question to you. We're talking about sort of a broad attentional focus again. When you're coming up to a hole, let's say any given hole, there's several things that you're thinking about. Certainly when it comes time to execute the shot, you're going to, be maybe thinking of one swing key thought or something like that. But as you stepped up maybe to the first tee or an important hole, what were, as sort of a broad sweep, what were some of the things that you were looking at and focusing on at that particular time?
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to use 2 examples, actually, my own, and also when I caddied for my father on the PGA Tour and on the Senior PGA Tour, because his routine was slightly different than mine, and I think it comes down to what Tim was saying a moment ago about focus. My routine was, I never really worried when I was over the bag. That was my time. That was my getting lost in my head time. And I can think about anything. But once I had that club in my left hand first, and I was standing behind the ball, that's when everything else shut down. Every single thing shut down in my head, and I became focused on the shot that I wanted to hit and nothing else. Dad, on the other hand, and I should have deferred to him, considering, it just goes to show it doesn't matter how famous he is. If he's your dad, you don't listen to him. But, his routine was a lot different. His routine started at the bag. And I'm going to use an example that happened at the Vintage Club in Palm Springs at a senior event there when I was caddying for him at 19 years old. And I made the mistake of handing him his sand wedge when he had a 20-foot, maybe 25-foot sand shot around the green. And it may not seem like a big mistake because, of course, he was going to use his sand wedge. But for him, that was a mistake. That fouled up his routine, his thinking patterns, and everything else. And he took the sand wedge from me, threw it back in his bag, and then started his whole routine over again. I remember that correctly because it was on ESPN, and I took a lot of stick from my friends for being yelled at by my dad on TV. But at the end of the day, I think everybody has to find what works for them. And I think personality comes into it. I think and I could be wrong, but I have a slightly more excitable personality than my dad ever did. And so I think for me, standing behind the ball and focusing for that limited period of time as opposed to adding an extra 30 seconds to a minute to it, like Dad did, I think is more personality-based than anything else. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think also, too, and again, I'm not saying in every case, but I would hazard to say that if you were to compare, let's say, Gary or Jackie Nicholas to Jack's a way of approaching things, I would say Jack's focus, if you will, was probably more along, it may not be exactly the same, but more along the lines of your father's. And I think there's a certain generational thing, too. I think that generation of player, seem to have a different way of focusing and preparing for each shot than I think some of the younger generation. If you look at on the PJ today, certainly they have a pre-shot routine, but it's not the way it was, in my opinion anyways, from what I've seen on TV. They seem to approach it differently than what I remember some of the greats of yesteryear, if you will, and like your father and Jack and Arnie and that. They just approach things very different.
You know what? I'll tell you what I picked up on the tour, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and both of your thoughts on this, but what I've picked up on the tour more than anything in the last, let's say, 2 to 5 years is the level of patience that these players have nowadays. They have a level of patience with their own games and with the media and everything going on around them that, my dad and other great players of that era really didn't have to deal with. It's an extra component that players now have to deal with. And so if they don't have patience while they're waiting for this shot or waiting for somebody to finish, I think it's a non-starter. And I'm really impressed with the patience that these youngsters have nowadays.
Yeah, and I would concur with that. Tim, that raises an interesting question that I never really thought of until just now when Byron mentioned that. But he's exactly right. If you look at, until sort of Arnie came charging on the scene, TV at that time was not really, obviously it wasn't until Arnie came on the scene that TV became big in golf.
Right.
So, they didn't have the pressure, they didn't have social media like they do nowadays. Your thoughts on that? What do you think about what Byron just said? The players today, I guess they're conditioned differently, for lack of better words, than what the players were back in Billy Casper and Jack and Arnie's and some of the other ones during their day. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, I love what Byron was saying about personality, because I totally agree that everybody kind of has that inner rhythm or that inner tempo or whatever that really, when they play their best golf, they're adhering to that. They're not outside that cadence. And for some players, it's very quick. For others, it's more methodical and deliberate. So I definitely agree with that, and I think that's a huge part of the equation. Getting back to the concept of patience, however, we could say that, I guess that Byron was talking a little bit about, even golf skills being life skills before. And so the whole patience factor, you could throw that out there, too, that we're really inundated with everybody's inundated these days with a quicker pace in a way from social media and from the internet and really in the information age in a way that most of us are inundated with, with how many countless emails and texts every day that we didn't have those media 20, 30 years ago. So I do believe that there are potentially more reasons to get distracted. But yet, to me, the ability to focus and to stay focused on a single task at hand really hasn't changed. And so the ability to eliminate distractions, I don't care if it's, 1, 5, 10, or 100, to really get into the moment of peak performance, to me, is still the same. And it's still the brain learning and to do it in a way both mentally and emotionally that puts a player into states of peak performance.
Right.
So
Again,
patience is required. Patience is required. There's no doubt about that. But you take a volatile player, and they can have anything go wrong in the middle of their backswing, and they'll lose their composure. You can take somebody who's committed to being focused, committed to being in a good mental and emotional space, who's really rock solid, and it really isn't going to matter too much. They'll get recomposed very quickly.
Yeah, but you know something
here's
though.
A question on that vein, if you don't mind, Ted,
yeah, go
if
ahead.
I could ask.
Go ahead.
A question on that note. I know of an example. I have two teenagers that I'm currently working with, and one of them confounds me, and the other is very much an even-keeled player, like you had just said, Tim. But the younger of the two is the most aggressive, angry player I've ever known, and yet he is easily 10 times better than his older brother. And the more angry he gets on the golf course, the better golfer he becomes. And I've never seen that in that particular circumstance. So I guess my question, Tim, is that something that you see a lot, or is that just a strange one-off circumstance that you're going to find every now and then?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And in my opinion, because he's a younger golfer, well, first of all, I guess I go with more of an emotional energy model that would suggest that anger, even within the cells of the body, is not as productive in the long run of an energy as is joy and optimism and belief, that those are energies. The other thing is, I will maintain every time, you cannot be in the zone and angry in the same moment. So while he might be producing at a high level right now, you don't see a lot of players at the top level anymore. We've kind of, I think, outgrown that into players who get very, very, very focused for a shot. They hit the ball. They start walking down the fairway. They're talking to each other. They're smiling. They're laughing. I really think the game is evolving that way. And I think the reason that it is because, to me, those are energies that within even the cells of the body, the muscles and the joints, it loves states of flow and ease. Those aren't going to lock up the body as quickly as states of anger. And so I guess that's what I would say on that. Now, he may be producing at a very high level right now, but I think that could be an accident waiting to happen.
You know,
I've always wondered if he was going to hit a wall. So that's a great answer. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, let me just two quick points.
I would go back to the zone, and I'm just not then Ted. But I would go back to the zone. When we're in the zone, there's no anger involved in the zone.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Blissful, peaceful place.
Yeah, and we all want to get there, as often as possible, and it seems to elude many golfers. Let me just two quick points on the anger. A player that comes to mind that sort of fits that model, Byron, is Rory Sabbatini. He was very much like that earlier on in the PGA Tour. You don't see, obviously, him very much anymore, but he was one of those players. I mean, he hated slow play. I remember a couple times. I mean, he literally called out on people right in the middle of a tournament. Was very, very vocal about that. So he would sort of fit in that model, I think, as well. And again, he may have hit that wall as a result of it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know him personally, but that would be a good contender for your youngster to take note of and maybe point out to, if you can get your hands on some old footage of Rory Sabbatini and see how he handled himself, because he did quite angry on the golf course. But I want to go back real quick, guys, just something that I was thinking about as we were talking about, the different social media and the pressures and that, something that the players that don't have, they have a lot of cameras and they've got a lot of social media exposure. But the one thing that they don't have the same exposure, I don't think, that some of the earlier players had, and both of you I'm sure will understand once I make the point, back in the day, if you will, again, when television was first coming up, they didn't have the ropes the same as they do now. The gallery actually intermingled quite often with the players. I can remember seeing some old footage of Jack and Arnie and some of these other guys walking up the fairway, and there were a couple of thousand people walking beside them. They got very close to the gallery. You don't see that now unless somebody hits an errant tee shot or an errant shot on the course. They're very well roped off, and they're certainly along the sides of the fairway and around the greens. But there were a lot of times I remember watching some of the old shell challenges and things like that, where literally, I'm sure Byron, your dad probably felt some of the gallery breathing down his neck when he was hitting a shot. They were that close. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that certainly had to have added pressure to these guys. They weren't used to that.
Yeah, they certainly weren't. Although I will say that most of the players that played in Europe or overseas were more used to it than even the Americans were. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they still do that at most European tour events, at the very least on the final day, with the final group, and allow them to kind of come in behind them, so to speak. You know, I think guys like
they do that here sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen them do that here a couple times. But I think people like my father, I can think of a dozen examples. You know, Gary Player, you know, Orville Moody, you know, one of the greats that never really got a lot of attention. You know, all of these different players, Nicholas, Palmer, Player, Dad, you know, they had an element to their style and to their golf games that was almost a little bit of a showmanship. And and I think that nowadays we have a little bit of that. But back then we had a lot of guys that were confident, that were a little cocky, that were very secure with what they could do with the golf club. And so being given the opportunity to show off a little bit was never something that was going to bother any of them. It was them being in their element, because most of them that were playing on the tour back then played a lot of side games and a lot of pro-am type events and a lot of things where they were showing off anyway in order to build their brand and their name.
Right. I think, though, a lot of those players, too, Byron, and certainly feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think there was more of a country club feel back in that time.
Yeah,
as opposed to now, it's treated more like a sport. So in other words, they're more athletic, it's more sports driven, sports minded. Where back then it was more of these are some great guys that belong to, you know, various clubs and that are getting out, and they've more or less, and I'm talking early time on the PGA Tour, of course, they formed this tour, and really it was the first opportunity for the average, you know, Joe out there to see some great players. And yeah, there was a lot of showmanship. There was, you know, you certainly didn't see it necessarily in the tournaments, but you know, even a little ribbing. I mean, Lee Trevino comes to mind. I mean, there was a lot of ribbing going on in the golf course, you know, when he was out there with some of these players, where now, again, it's more, they're considered more athletic. They're more athletes now, as opposed to, you know, like I said, a country club feel, if you will. I want to move very quickly, guys, so we don't don't fall behind here. Getting back to focus, of course, now we're talking about narrow focus, and this is obviously an example, the ball. Now you're focusing on one key issue. Tim, I want you to start us off on this one, if you wouldn't mind. When's it time to narrow the focus, if you will? What do you try to encourage your players to do? You know, initially when they're getting ready to come up to the shot, they're a little bit more broad with their focus, but now it's time to narrow in. What are you getting them to narrow in, and why?
Yeah, I really like having my players target oriented. I think too much of what and a big difference between amateurs and professionals, touring professionals, is where their eyes are focused. Most amateurs in their pre-shot routine will be very, very, very swing oriented, and when you get to the tour level, you see that they're very target oriented. So the thing that I work on with my players, my better players, is in the routine, to get very specific, is I'll have them stand behind the ball, and as they do, they really take in a deep breath. And it's really the breath that anchors them into the target. I have them get the eyes a little bit soft so that it's not a staring contest. And then really in that moment where they feel emotionally that they're ready to go, at that point it's just they go up to the ball and they give the target a final look, and then they just go. So it really ties into what Byron was saying, that he's a quicker player, and that is what I'm seeing. And the reason that I like that personally is I just think that time on the golf course, at least in the shot itself, time is really not our friend, because there's a lot of time for a lot of thoughts that we do not want to be thinking to creep into our heads. And so the more efficient that we can make the routine, and I'm not talking about rushing the shot ever, but I'm talking about having a nice cadence to it where we're aligned with the shot mentally, physically, emotionally, and I think that's what produces the good stuff that we see.
Yeah. Byron, from a playing standpoint, again, very quickly, what did you focus on when you had to narrow your focus? Obviously, again, coming up to the shot, you had certain swing thoughts, things that you were preparing for, but when it came down to sort of crunch time to execute the shot, what were you thinking about at that time? And then I want to ask you, I want you to sort of, just to what Tim was just talking about here, about sort of quickening up that pace and obviously not rushing through the shot, but maybe having a quicker pace. Why does that work for you as opposed to maybe something that your dad did?
Yeah, let me answer that one first, because I'm going to refer back to what Tim said a moment ago, and that is that, as far as being quick, there's so many thoughts that can happen on the golf course, and so for me personally, I wanted to focus on and make that focus as least time-consuming as possible, because you don't know when that good feeling is going to happen. And, Tim said a second ago about how, once you feel that emotional place that you know the shot you need to hit, you know where it's going to go, then it's just literally ready to pull the trigger. For me, I have tried it both ways. I've tried it Dad's way. I've aimed for the high side of the green. I've taken the pins out. I once had a coach about 3 years ago that I still work with that tried to change the dynamic, and he said, forget about the large part of the green, forget about trying to get it uphill or downhill. I want you to focus laser-like on the pin, and that's where I want you to hit the ball. And I've been amazed at how using that strategy, and he used Tim's idea of softening the eyes a little bit so it's not a staring contest, so you feel very comfortable. Right. But, that's what I've come to the conclusion for me personally that's going to work. Now, that's on a stereotypical 150-yard shot.
Right.
As we all know, those don't happen very often.
Right.
There's all sorts of things that come into it, where the pin is, the weather, conditions, wind, etc. So in a perfect world, I would say laser-like focus, but for me, right there on the pin, and once I feel that good feeling, I pull the trigger. Sometimes that's really fast. Sometimes it's 30 seconds longer. But I try to wait, as Tim said, and I totally agree. I try to wait for that comfortable, safe emotional feeling.
Yeah, it's like an aha moment that, okay, good, we're ready, it's good, let's go.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's what I say in my head, actually, funny enough. Is I say, okay, you're ready. Yeah. You're ready, do it. And that's it.
Yeah, but to rush that feeling is not going to work. Or to slow it down too much. Now now what goes through their heads is, oh my gosh, this is taking too long. That's not where we want it to be either. So it really is almost a very natural kind of the eyes are in on the target, the breathing is happening, and the feeling really comes to you that, it's just like, yeah, this is as good as I got, let's go.
I can't explain it other than to say this, and that is that good players, and I've talked to a lot of them, but good players always have a point in their swing, Ted, where they feel complete and utter peace and control. I've known web.com players that I'm friends with that can take it up to the top, and at the very top of their swing decide at the last moment if they feel the wind come up on where they're going to swing down and through the ball. I've got other players that starts on the first 3 feet back. For me personally, if I get to that 3 o'clock position in my backswing the way I want to, then I am 99% certain the ball's going to go exactly where I want it to. So I think good players all will have some trigger in the middle of their swings at some point where they feel that level of control.
Right. Well said. I want to move on just a little bit, again, with focus, but I want to bring in, we talked about the Open, Byron and Tim, a lot of these guys are preparing and have been preparing for really what's going to be a very difficult test of golf. And, these guys play week in, week out at various different golf courses. But as you know, Byron, from firsthand experience playing over there, at golf course like Royal Troon and some of the other ones over there, Carnoustie and so forth, it's a much different style and a way of playing golf than it is here. The challenges are different. Here we tend to hit a little higher, softer shot coming into the green, and over there, you're executing more of, in many cases, like a bump and run style shot or a lower shot trajectory in order to play into some of the conditions that you might be faced with. So obviously, focus becomes a huge factor. Byron, I'm going to let you, even though I know you finished, I'm going to let you go first on this one, and then Tim, I want you to jump in for next week. What's going through their mind right now?
Well, the first thing I'll say two things, and that is the first is the first thing I always check when it's Open Championship week is the weather, specifically when it's on a course that is on the coast. Royal Troon is one of my favorites. My ex-wife was from about 10 minutes south of there, so when I lived in Scotland, we made it to the West Coast every month or so to go and visit the in-laws. I played a lot of golf at Royal Troon and up and down the coast, off down to Turnberry. You're right about the different style of game. Playing links golf, specifically when there's wind coming off of the sea, changes the dynamic of everything. You may hit a 7-iron 175 yards in a perfect world, but there's going to be circumstances on that course where 175 yards you're going to have to hit a hybrid into the wind and try to keep it down.
Right.
There's a lot of circumstances, and so I would say that you have to be a shot maker. You have to be almost the ideal or the best shot maker of the week in order to pull off a win on that course, and that is very dependent on the weather. Now, if we have 75-degree days and no wind, you're going to see some really low scores because you can rip those courses up if, in ideal conditions. But you add some wind in there, a little overcast, skies, maybe even a little bit of rain, and those players are going to have to really understand what they're capable of in order to score.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Tim, what type of player, what kind of player is going to have an advantage next week? If you look at history, give you an example, a player like Nicklaus who had that sort of high fade, certainly, has done fairly well over the years at the Opens, but those weren't really his best golf. His best golf was playing, as I said, more here.
Right.
Then you take a player like Tom Watson, who virtually cleaned up at the Opens. Solid ball striker, but just what type of player is going to have an advantage going in next week?
Yeah, I guess I go a little bit more I certainly agree with what Byron was saying, in that it is the shot makers. There's no doubt about that, and I think that's what I love about the Open as much as anything is you probably see more shot making over there than you do in any of the other majors.
True.
Maybe the U.S. Open a little bit, but it's not just platform golf, and I love it because of that. But I guess I have to go with it's going to be the ones who are the most patient in terms of just, accepting that there's going to be some crazy stuff going on. And, can you handle the challenges, and can you accept that the ball, not every ball is going to go where you want it to go. I don't care how good you're hitting it, how well you're hitting it, and you're going to have some crazy stuff happening. And to me, that's really going to be the player who, yes, it's going to have to be a great ball striker, but there's a lot of great ball strikers on tour. But there's not as many maybe patient players on tour. And we certainly see that every year in the U.S. Open with guys that are just shaking their heads and yelling and screaming and rolling their eyes. And then you look at a guy like Dustin Johnson, who just kind of looks like he's just impervious to everything that's happening out there. And so, I guess I gotta hats off to him, because, man, he looked good in the U.S. Open, and he just looked like he wasn't going to get fazed by anything. And of course, the ball on the final day and whatever, the media sure wanted to go with that one, and he just seemed to handle it just in stride, and I was very, very happy for him. It was like he was so focused, there wasn't anything that was going to throw him off, and so that's what I'm seeing. And of course, to get in that position, you've got to hit the ball well. There's no doubt about that. But you better have the good mind game too.
Yeah, and
and don't you notice that he wouldn't have won the U.S. Open had he not been going back to the very first thing you said, Tim, and that is if he wasn't in a good, positive, happy place.
Well,
he wouldn't have been able, that's how my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, he hit some crazy shots too, but the other ones I always see in the U.S. Open, what always fascinates me is guys who most weeks of the year remain fairly calm, or they seem like they're pretty composed. All of a sudden, you throw them into the Open, and they become like infants. And I just find it amusing that they think that you're going to get the job done with that kind of with those kinds of roller coaster emotions. And generally, now of course, whoever's playing well, and that's maybe a little bit of the chicken and the egg. Are they playing well because their emotions are in a good place, or are their emotions in a good place because they're playing well? And to me, the two obviously feed upon each other. But yeah, I think it's going to be somebody who has a good combination of both next week.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well, Tim. Something else, just sort of on that, again, as we get close to wrapping up here, God, it's hard to believe this time's already flying by. Going back to this whole focus conversation that, what's interesting about today's player, they're all, relatively good ball strikers compared to one another. I mean, they're phenomenal compared to, of course, the amateurs, but compared to one another, there's a few that maybe stand out as exceptionally good ball strikers, but they're all generally fairly equal in that category. But you don't see the players standing out the same as they did 20, 30 years ago. And what I mean by that is, with the exception of Tiger and a little bit of, Phil to some degree, you don't see anyone really dominating. And does that fall into focus? Do you, for example, Tiger had an incredible focus, as Jack did, more so than virtually any other player on tour. And that's why I think they were able to. It's not that Jack. Certainly, we know Jack was not a better ball striker than everybody else on the tour at that time. And Tiger, even though he could hit it long and could hit some phenomenal shots, if you compared him stat-wise to many of the other players out there, he was not the best ball striker either. But their intensity and the way that they were able to manage their focus and their emotions on the golf course set them apart from everybody. Why are we not seeing that now in today's sport? And everybody always comes up with the argument, well, they're all great players now. I don't buy that. There were lots of great ball strikers. Byron, I want to get your thoughts first, and then Tim, I want to get your thoughts on that as well. Why are we not seeing anybody dominating the way we did, with the exception of Tiger?
Well, I think it is because there's a lot of great players, but I have to add a caveat to that, and that is that golf is a sport, thanks to the First Tee and other programs, including a program that I'm launching at our golf courses called Kids on Course, that is specifically targeting giving the youth of today the opportunity to play the game the same way that we did before. But there's a lot more people nowadays than there were before, and there is a huge amount of golfers out there that never would have been given perhaps the opportunity to play the game to the level that they are.
Right.
A good example is a good friend of mine, a young man that I have a lot of respect for and that I've practiced next to at Thanksgiving Point a lot, and that's Tony Finau. And he's incredibly talented, and his head is on straight, and he's going to do some great things in the coming years. But will he dominate? No, I don't think anybody's going to dominate ever again because there are just too many good golfers. You have to think of how many tour players there were 20 years ago compared to now. I think there's an additional couple thousand. And and so, with that said, the more numbers you have, the better talent that's going to be out there. And so, I know it's kind of a generic answer, but I really do think that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Well, I agree to a certain degree with you, Byron. And Tim, I want you to jump in here as well with your thoughts. But I agree. I think that there is a numbers game, but I would still think that you would see at least two or three each year on the PGA Tour that sort of rise to the top. And you saw that a little bit, again, with Tiger and again, Phil, and there were a few others that sort of resonated. But now you're seeing, every week it seems, obviously except in the U.S. Open and then Dustin's win, his back-to-back win. But, you're seeing sort of the scales tipping. Like one week it's this player, next week it's that player. There doesn't seem to be even a flurry of players, Tim, that are coming out, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 guys out of all these players that are sort of rising to the top. It just seems that the top 10 are sort of shuffling. Rory, they're shuffling the deck, it seems, every week.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Byron in that I do think it's a numbers game, but I'm fond of saying that if we took 100 players of equal physical size with near identical swings, equal diet, equal training habits, equal educations, equal whatever. In my opinion, 2 or 3 would thrive, and 97 or 98 would not. And then if you pooled all of those 2 together with 2 from however many pools, and you put those all together, because I think this is what we see in junior golf right now. You see kids that are they go up to the next level. And then you've got, of that next 100, of that new 100, you see 2 or 3 that move on, and most who do not. So it is kind of a numbers game. But I do agree that there is so much talent out there now that any given week, anybody who's really tapped into something, and golfers are notorious, I think, because of the complexity in some ways of the move. The
right.
golf swing really physiologically, the golf swing has probably more moving components than just about any other sport. And so you see somebody that taps into something week by week by week. They find their putter some week, or they lose their driver the next week, and so they're not in it anymore. So I think that's why we're seeing so much talent. But from you still have that group that really believes in themselves that will be the top 10 or 20 players consistently until they lose that factor. To me, belief is the factor that really separates everybody. And when I do think that Jack and Tiger and really everybody in their day had that belief factor that they were invincible, and they were maybe until they lost the belief factor.
I think they did very much so. I'd be curious to find out what you thought of the superstitious aspect of players like in Dad's era and sooner as opposed to now. Because, I can remember days when people wanted to use a certain putter. If they lost their putter, they were going to withdraw that week. If they if they weren't hitting their driver, they reverted back to their 10-year-old driver. I mean, there's lots of things that you don't really see nowadays,
Well, and I love the question because in my mind it ties exactly into what I believe, which is that they believe it works. And as long as you believe it works, then it will work. But as soon as, and this is the problem with the mind game, is once you let conditions outside of you start affecting your belief, you're in big trouble. In other words, I'll believe I'm a great player as long as the ball's going in. And my whole contention is, no, we've got to get you believing in you, and then the ball will start going in, because otherwise it's just too shaky. And so it's the same with new equipment, and I love new equipment, but it's what I call, the 2-week syndrome. I buy a new putter, it works great for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden they're not going in anymore. And what I'm saying is, same brain that's processing information the same way, that's really hopeful for a couple weeks that, oh man, this might just be it. And then in 2 weeks we go back to the same brain that looks at things the same way and goes right back to the very conditions that cause the putter now not to work. And it's not really the putter that isn't working as much as the way we're processing the information and our thoughts and our emotions surrounding that situation.
Well, I'm glad to be validated, because I've thought that for a long time.
Well, I always say
when you believed it worked, it did, and when you stopped believing it didn't work, and of course it didn't work anymore. So it really, but the issue, of course, is how do you access states of belief when things aren't going well? And there's the $1 billion question for the mind game right there. Right,
and it goes back to I've said many times in the past on the show, with going on the equipment theme here for a second. A lot of people bought into the same thing. Well, if I get that new driver, I'm going to get those 10, 20, 30 extra yards. with virtually no changes to their golf swing or game or what have you, just that piece of equipment. And there was initially, they were hitting it up, like you wouldn't believe, as you said, Tim, same with the putter. But at the end of the day, it was $400 that they could have spent a little bit more wisely, in my opinion, getting some good lessons, good instruction, or maybe a few range balls and get out there and work on your game instead of hoping and praying that a new piece of equipment. And it's fun. Who doesn't like to go out and treat themselves once in a while? But I think this has added level of frustration as well with a lot of the amateurs out there for a long time. And I think they're wisening up now, many of them. But I think that obviously that was a very effective marketing campaign that went on for quite a long time with the equipment manufacturers, getting everybody to change out equipment very quickly and rapidly, and just not getting the results. So, obviously there's a lot more behind the scenes and in between the ears out in the golf course. And hopefully tonight we've peeled back a few layers of that onion, and we'll certainly have more discussion on that. But guys, I want to thank you very much for coming on tonight and sharing that and talking about some of the focus aspects. We didn't get a chance to finish the last two, and unfortunately I'm out of time, but we'll get that in another show. But Tim, as always, great having you on the program. A lot of insight and just a pleasure having you on here. Very quickly, Tim, how can the folks reach out to you if they want to learn more about Spirit of Golf?
Yeah, best way to reach me would be through the website, which is www.myspiritofgolf.com. And I'm, of course, located in South Florida, but I also have offices up in Ohio. So work with a lot of juniors and everywhere from junior on all the way up to, of course, the tour players, Jim Herman being my marquee player right now. And so would love to hear from you and do clinics all over the country and perhaps soon over in Europe too. So mind clinics that are very specific to skill development in the mind area.
Well, Tim, as always, Tim's a great guy. I love having him on the program. Wealth of information, and definitely go to, for those of you tuning to the show, go to myspiritofgolf.com. Not only to get wind of some great information, but to find out your schedule, I believe, is on there as well, Tim, as far as some of your events coming up. So.
And the other thing, it is. And the other thing we do is there's a thought of the day. There's no charge for that. And that thought goes out throughout the world every day. We have thousands of readers, and it's just kind of I guess a thought on the mind game, man. So it's very well received. So that's a free thing, and they can sign that up for that on the homepage of the website too. Perfect.
Tim, thank you. And Byron, my good friend, how can the folks that want to get a hold of you, how can they reach out if they want to be welcomed into the wonderful world of Mr. Byron Casper?
Well, I'm going to give you our website for our golf academy and also my email address, because I've got a new one that's very easy to remember. So my email is bcgolfpro. Told you it was easy to remember.
Yep.
bcgolfpro@live.com. And the website is billycasper.com. You'll be able to send me a note and also find out what the future of our golf academies in Southern California as well as Southern Utah and what's happening there. So certainly enjoyed being on the show, Ted. I learned a lot.
Well,
I usually do, because you have some great speakers on. And Tim, I look forward to speaking with you personally as well as on a show in the future.
That would be awesome. And Ted, thanks again. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's, as I've said many, many times on the show, and I will say it again tonight, it's really through your efforts and your cooperation and giving of your time freely coming on the show that really helps it to make it what it is. And I get lots of phenomenal feedback all through social media. People enjoy listening to the show. Of course, it's a global program now, and I've had some great guests over the years, and looking forward to having you guys come back on and sharing some of your thoughts and views. And we're going to keep the needle moving upwards, as they say, and helping some of those golfers out there, some of the new ones to the game, and some of those that have been around for a little while. We're going to help them as best we can right here on Golf Talk Live, and particularly on the Coach's Corner panel. So, guys, thank you very much. Byron, to you and your fellow Scotsman, if you will, apologize on my behalf and tell him I'm going to be watching the Open, not the British Open, the Open next week.
You're backtracking. Yeah, you're backtracking very well, Ted. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
gentlemen,
perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. God bless to both of you, and I look forward to having you back again in the future.
Wonderful.
Guys,
God bless Ted and Tim, and thanks again, you guys. Wonderful session.
All right, thank you, guys. Right, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, my very special guests, Byron Casper, of course, international PGA member, and he's working his way towards the Champions Tour now. He and I have talked a little bit about that, and I'm hoping I'm going to be fortunate enough. Maybe I'll meet him out there. We'll see, but what happens. But no promises. But I'm going to see what I can do. But if not, I'll certainly be cheering him on. Great guy, and of course the son of the late legendary Billy Casper, who is one of my favorite players of all time. Just a great guy and just a very humble man. And I had the honor and pleasure of having him on the show here a few years ago. While he was still with us, and just giving him his time. In fact, he was on for an entire broadcast. When I first up and started. Never had the pleasure of meeting him face to face, but had a couple of conversations with him beforehand, and then of course on the broadcast, and certainly was a great asset to the game, a great father, and just a very humble gentleman, and very honored to have had the opportunity to speak with him to the length that I did. So thank you, Byron, and of course my good friend, the president and founder of Spirit of Golf, Mr. Tim Kremer, just a wealth of information. Make sure you go to myspiritofgolf.com to check out not only the schedules of some of his conferences and seminars that he may have going, but also sign up, I believe, for his newsletter, as he said on the front page there, for the thought of the day. Some great information, great tips there as well. All right, I got two gentlemen coming up here, been on the show a number of times. Last time, I believe, was in April of last year. Of course, I'm talking about a couple of fellow Canadians, Rick Benoit and Bill Stark from ILDC, which is short for International Long Drive Challenge. They got a new event that's coming up actually next week, I believe is when it's going to be here, actually out in, I believe, North Carolina. These guys have been on the show a number of times, so without further hesitation, let me bring on my good friends, Mr. Rick Benoit and Bill Stark. All right, good evening, guys. Welcome to Golf Talk. I'm doing very well. Rick, are both you and Bill with us?
Yeah, actually, Ted, we're in Newton Grove, North Carolina. Our event is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday is competition days. And in the truck with me, I've got Bill Stark, who you're familiar with. I've also got Bobby Peterson, who's one of our board members of the ILDC and founder of the ILDC USA in conjunction with Bill and I, and Ron Lampman, who's also a board member. So you got the four of us on the line here, Ted.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Well, guys, thank you very much, first off, for joining me on Golf Talk Live. It's a pleasure. Bobby and Ron, welcome to the show as well. And safe driving. It sounds like you're driving, so be careful while you're out there talking to me. But let me just do this real quick. Rick, why don't you give us just for those that may be tuning in for the first time tonight, maybe just a quick recap, a little bit about ILDC, how it was formed, roughly how long ago it started, and how many events. And don't talk about this week's event yet. We'll save that for a minute later. But just sort of recap some of the other events that you have throughout the year. And we'll go from there.
All right, Ted. First we'd like to thank you for having us back on the show. It's always a pleasure to be on your show as a fellow Canadian, so thank you very much for that again. I guess you can hear the weather in the background out here in North Carolina. It's kind of raining hard. We're hoping that rain stops before the weekend. But just to let our listeners know about our organization, we formed in 2010. Bill Stark and myself were the original founding partners of the organization, the International Long Drive Challenge. And Bill and I both got into the sport in and around the year 2000, and we absolutely love the sport of long drive. And we refer to it, and it's commonly referred to these days, I guess, as home run derby of golf. We we competed at many events, both in Canada, the U.S., and internationally throughout the years, and just clearly enjoyed the sport so much so that in 2010 we felt that it was time for us to give something back to the sport itself that had given us so much joy and excitement over the years, and we wanted to give something back to that. So we formed the International Long Drive Challenge in 2010, and since that time we've had our event called the Bash for Cash, our Canadian National Championship, which is held at Stark's Golf Course in Port Rowan, Ontario, and our International World Team Championship, which is unique to long drive because it's the first ever event that involved a team concept in the sport of long drive, where we had 3 open competitors, a female and a senior, going against each other in competing countries, like other sports would do in a world championship. So that was our concept in 2010, and since that time we've quadrupled in numbers in terms of the participation in our event. And we feel that we're heading in the right direction in terms of long drive and what we want to do in the future.
Let me just say, you've been on the show now, I think, about 3 times. This is probably making it number 4. And one of the reasons I enjoy having you guys on is I hear nothing but good things coming from all of the callers that were on the last few times. Obviously, many of them are competitors in ILDC challenges and so forth. But they have nothing but good things to say about you and Bill particularly. Just not only are the tournaments, if you will, or the I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking for, but the events run extremely well, but everybody certainly feels very welcomed and warm and invited, and I think this is why you get such great participation, and just through obviously word of mouth and so forth, word is quickly spread on just what a great organization you guys have got. And Bobby and Ron, I know that you're on the board as well, and helping out. Bobby, if I'm not mistaken, and Rick, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but Bobby, I know you're sort of intimately involved with this particular tournament event coming up, if you will, this weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah, I helped set up the venue for it over at Keith Hills Golf Course, Buies Creek.
Say it again. I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Keith Hills Golf Course in Buies Creek, North Carolina, Lillington.
Okay. So this is this is the first year for this particular.
Sorry.
No, this is the first year for this particular event, correct?
Well, it's the first year that we've ever held it in the U.S. In January, we held a board meeting with all the board of directors of the ILDC, and we decided to move the ILDC into the USA. So we formed, in conjunction with the International Long Drive Challenge of Canada, we also formed the International Long Drive Challenge of the USA. And in doing so, this is our inaugural event in the USA, and we're holding it at Keith Hills and golf course. And I mean, for us, it's an exciting change because it's the first time that we've ever held this event outside of Canada. We're actually sitting outside of the home of the One Stop Power Shop clubhouse right now, where a lot of these athletes that are going to be competing this weekend come here to train under Bobby's tutelage. So all around, it's going to be a fantastic weekend and a special event in that we're holding it kind of in the One Stop Power Shop backyard, if you will. And we're going to see a lot of talent out this weekend from that organization and Bobby's tutelage as both an instructor, a teacher, and a mentor.
Right, and obviously you guys have done a phenomenal job in building not only the ILDC brand in Canada, but as you said, you now are branching out, and you not only get a lot of great Canadian long drive hitters that have participated with ILDC, but you've obviously attracted a lot of U.S. Players as well. But you're also getting a lot of international attention as well. You're getting players coming internationally. Is that correct?
Yeah, in our international World Team Championships, we get quite a few countries from outside of Canada and the U.S. that attend our event. South South Africa. We have a competitor from South Africa that's actually going to be at Keith Hills this coming weekend and compete in our Bash for Cash, one of our female competitors. And you know, again, Ted, I mean, we've been on the show before, and we've talked about the event, and I think what makes our event unique is that, yes, it's a structured and organized event, and we hope that the competitors like the way we run the event, but along with the great competition, there's a lot of camaraderie, it's a lot of fun, and I think that is a huge draw to our event for a lot of the competitors. And I think we're going to see that again here this weekend, and we're holding the Bash for Cash 6. We've got an open division, a senior division, and a women's division, and we're one of the only organizations currently in the world that does long drive events that holds a division for women. So I think that's kind of unique and special, and something that we need to build and grow on.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think now as you are starting to see more and more women, becoming interested in golf, you're obviously going to get women that are going to specifically want to tap into what, the events that you guys are doing as well. And you guys have done, in my opinion, a great job, not only hosting the events, but just, again, building the awareness out there for so many people. And that, I think that's, again, one of the other reasons why you're getting such good numbers coming in all the time. Tell us a little bit specifically about the event. I mean, you've got different categories as well, but give us an outline, if you will, for those that maybe are not familiar with what your event encompasses. Tell us a little bit exactly what's going to happen at the event this weekend, and how many days is it over, and then sort of narrow it down from there.
The event this weekend is going to take place on Saturday and Sunday, July 9th and 10th. And there are 3 divisions, as I said earlier. Open men's division is 18 to 44 years of age. The old guys division, or seniors division, is 45 years and older. And then we have our ladies division. And, again, the ladies division is unique in that no one else does it. It encourages women to get involved in the sport. And as so many of your callers in previous shows that you've had onto your show, we know that there's a lot of female talent out there, but there's really no venues for them to display that talent at, or go and try and compete. And maybe there's a little bit of apprehension because they've never done it before. It's on a different scale than golf itself in terms of a sport, and they might be afraid to come out and try it. So the age limit for the women is we start at 16 years old, and we don't cap it at anything, because we'd really like to encourage more women to come out and participate in the sport. And it's really about having fun and coming out and trying it. And, the camaraderie around, I mean, they'll feel welcomed into the family and really love to do the sport.
Yeah, I remember, the last year when you were on the program, I remember many of the participants, both the men and the women. Of course, you had Lisa and Michelle were on the show last year, but I remember, sort of a resounding echo, if you will, of all of the participants, of just really how welcome they feel at the event. And again, it's not just a great competition. I mean, that's obviously, they're there to compete, but it is really a very extended family unit, if you will, of like-minded people that enjoy a similar event and a similar sport. But you guys like to have fun and have a good time. And really, when you're doing, regardless, all competitiveness aside, when you're at an event like this, you want to be having fun and enjoying yourselves. And again, that's something that was very evident for those that tuned into last year's and the previous year's broadcast when we had some of the other callers on. That was something that resonated very, very strongly from all of them, was that they, you guys not only put a great event together, but you made sure everybody had a good time and felt welcomed at the events, and that was extremely important on propelling it forward.
Oh, for sure, and we're all about that extended family, because long drive is one of those sports that's been out there for a lot of years, and has been getting more and more exposure. But in order for it to grow, we believe, from our perspective, we need to bring like-minded people together in order to gain more knowledge and experience from those who've been around longer than us, and hear right directly from the players. And a couple of things that are misnomers, if you will, in what we do. And I'm going to let Bobby speak to the equipment portion of this because that's part of what the One-Stop Power Shop does.
Right.
And he's very, very, very competent in what he does in building the clubs for competitors and athletes in terms of knowledge. But the other misconception is that, other organizations that are out there or other events that are out there, the price tag for a competitor to come out and compete is high. It's expensive in some of the events that are out there. Some of the events are $750 or $1,200 for an entry fee. This weekend for the ladies and for seniors, it's $300 to enter, and for the open division, it's $500. And Bill and I have always felt that it's not about Bill and I, and it's not about the organization. It's about the players and getting the event and the sport to grow. So we give 100% of the entry fees back to the hitters in terms of a prize purse. As we've said before, we don't have those corporate sponsors. We don't have the money or the dollars that we need currently to grow the organization as quickly as we would like to. But in the meantime of somebody seeing value in what we do, we give back 100% of the players' money back to the players in terms of a prize purse, and we keep their costs down as low as we possibly can. And that holds true right through to the International World Team Championships, where people go away on an all-inclusive trip for 7 days at an all-inclusive resort. They're more than welcome to bring their significant other, their children, family members, make it a vacation, and then compete for 4 days. And the cost is extremely low to go and do that in comparison to some of the other events that are out there. So that's one of the misconceptions and misnomers is, I don't want to go and waste a lot of money trying to do this because I don't really know if I'm good enough. But we think that the cost is reasonable, it's low enough, and it's still a good enough return in that we give back 100% of that entry fee back to the players. So that's the first misconception that I think that everyone needs to understand. And the second one is the equipment that we use and the misconception around, the heads that we use and the shafts that we use and that we use some magical wand to hit a ball far. And I'm going to let Bobby speak to that. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, all equipment is obviously USGA compliant, and we build to the maximum length of 48 inches, which is allowed by the USGA. So, you could actually take one of these drivers and go out and play in any sanctioned event with USGA that you wanted to. There's nothing wrong with that. And the balls we're using, all legal balls. There's nothing illegal about what we're doing as far as the equipment is built out or anything like that. And it's all regulated. So, but that's kind of a misnomer that we're using super long clubs. Well, they're not super long. Once you get them in your hand and start practicing a little bit, they'll feel pretty good to you. It's just, when I first started playing golf, standard length of the driver was 42 inches. It was 42 inches because we were swinging small persimmon heads with steel shafts that weighed 120 grams. Now we're graphite and stuff like that. We can get the weight down to 40, 50 grams, and still hold up. And that allows you to get more length into the club to generate a little more club speed. And there, when you start doing that, you start looking at different lofts because the longer the club, the less loft you're going to have. So we got guys that are actually getting, down to 2-degree drivers, which, for the average golfer, they're not going to do that, But again, we're up on the tee trying to hit it out the back of the grid, not trying to find a little fairway and then a wedge into a green.
Right. And traditionally, how wide of a landing area is it going to be, Rick?
So at our events, our grid is 45 yards wide, which for most golf courses is pretty much the standard width of a fairway. We like to hold our events on a golf course because we still like to have that element of truth, if you will. And we like to have an event where the spectator can compare something to their own abilities and what they've done on that particular hole if they've played there before. So the spectators that are coming out to Keith Hills this weekend to watch the event, if they've played Keith Hills, they'll know exactly where they hit the ball when they've gone to play that hole and practice and do their thing. But when our competitors get up and they hit the ball, there's a comparison there. They can relate to it. There's a reality to it, as opposed to, hitting a ball out into a football field that might be 100 yards wide or 90 yards wide. It takes some of the skill, in our opinion, away from the sport. So we like to keep it to a fairway, which 40, 45 yards wide is the maximum we like to go. And that's what our grid typically is, and it goes to 450 yards long.
Wow. Now, Ron, I want to bring you in into the conversation as well, if we can. Ron, I know that I know you're ready to compete as well. I want you to just talk very briefly, if you can, about, as a competitor, as you're coming into this event, what are you thinking? What's going through your mind, and what sort of thoughts are you putting together as you prepare for an event like this?
First of all, it's a blast to compete. I just love being around all the guys. Everybody gets along. And we're one big family here. Everybody cheers everybody on. Nobody's, wishing anybody no harm there. And it's just fun being with everybody. And I'm just hoping to do my best, right? I'm getting up there. I'm relaxing, working on what maybe I was practicing while I was on the range, but trying not to think too much, right? Just letting it go. So it's just a fun event. It's great to be around everybody. You don't get to see them all year long, and everybody's just up there cheering everybody on, and hopefully you hit it your best.
Now, is there a strategy? Now, I don't want you to give any trade secrets here, but do you have a strategy that you come into the event with? I mean, obviously, you want to be relaxed and you want to be, not sort of working yourself up, getting overstressed and things like that. But do you have a strategy or a game plan coming into an event like this?
Well, I'm hoping to maybe hit a sprinkler head or a root that's down in the fairway so I get a good bounce. No strategy. I've worked on, the guys have practiced coming up to this event, and I like to say we practice to forget. So when I get on that tee, I'm just trying to stay relaxed and letting her rip, and hopefully I catch a good one. If I catch a good one, fantastic. If I hit my best and I still get beat, that's no problem at all.
Right. Again, it goes back to the fun factor. You guys are there to have a good time with that. Bill, if you haven't dozed off yet, I'd like to ask you a question. Are you going to be playing with shoes and socks this year, or are you going barefoot?
Barefoot, Bill, that's me. I don't like shoes. much more comfortable in a barefoot environment. And, doesn't make people talk a lot. Adds a little bit of comedy to the routine.
Well, but you got to keep in mind that you got to keep in mind though, you're not up in Canada, so you got to watch out for things in North Carolina, like fire ants and things like that, and snakes, and that you're not going to have back in Ontario. So you have to be careful if you're going to go barefoot. Bobby, I want to bring you back in here just to have a little bit of fun here. I think we talked a little bit about this on the last time on the show. About that Canadian-U.S. Competition here. We're going to get some patriotism fired up here for this event, a little U.S. patriotism, and you're going to be facing off against some of those Canucks.
Yeah, we've already started. I mean, we've just joined by a fellow American, Mitch Dobbin. He's a board member also, and obviously Mitch and I are sitting in the front seat, and the Canadians are sitting in the back seat of this truck already. Yeah, we're always going to have that. If you can't have a little needling and fun, what's the point of being here? Yeah.
Well, I just want you to know, Bobby, that in Canada, a truck sitting in the back seat of a truck is like sitting in the back seat of a limo. So they're just taking advantage of your driving and.
Yeah, but the problem with that is we're not in Canada. Eh?
That's right. That's right. Well, guys, let me ask you that. Yeah, let me ask you that. Sorry, go ahead.
I said we've been joined by Mitch Dobbin, and he's also one of our board members, and the last one that's going to be here for this event this weekend. So, I'd like to bring him into the discussion as well.
Sure. Mitch, well, let me bring in, obviously coming in last, you're coming in with some confidence. You didn't need to get ahead of everybody else and get out there and warming up in that. So you're coming last here with obviously some confidence. Let me ask you the same thing that I asked Ron. a moment earlier, is are you coming in with a game plan? What's your game plan going to be for this week and coming into the event?
Well, I actually raise money for charities at charity golf events for a living. So as far as preparation leading up to this, I hit golf balls for a living. But at the same time, it puts a lot of wear and tear on my body. So I'm just going to come out, I'm not really going out with the highest expectations. I know I'm not at absolute top speed right now. So I'm just going to try to do the absolute best I can, put as many balls in play, and hopefully one gets rolling.
And as Ron said a moment ago, maybe a lucky bounce off a sprinkler head or something just to give you an extra 10, 20, 30 yards, hopefully not backwards, advance it down the fairway. Let me ask you something else.
Hopefully I can play hopscotch on those sprinklers.
Let me ask all of you this, and whoever wants to jump in, feel free. What about fitness? I mean, all of you, of course, know Michelle Sheptak. I mean, she'll be, she works out hard and prepares for something like that. Are all of you, maybe not to the same degree, but do you all kind of keep yourself, in shape that way? Is there anything as far as a fitness regime to prepare for tournaments like that, for events like this? Or is it just sort of a grip it mentality? How do you come about that? Let's start with Rick. I know you like to do some lifting in that, and then we'll go to Bill, and then Bobby, Ron, and then Mitch.
Just because of my real job, my real career, that I exercise regularly. But in terms of exercising for long drive itself, I don't do anything specific for the sport. But there are other people that dedicate and focus themselves to training and working out around the clock, year round, for this sport, and they're truly dedicated athletes. And I think, as I've said before to you, it's important to recognize that the people in this sport that do that type of regime are athletes, and I think that needs to be recognized.
Sure. Oh, for sure. Bill, what about you? You doing a few extra reps, maybe a couple of push-ups before the event, or what have you got going?
Not a lot in that fashion, Ted.
maybe a little.
Might be the occasional 12-ounce curl or something like that. But other than that,
that was going to be my next. Bobby, what about you? Do you is there anything special that you do to prepare for an event like this? I mean, obviously, you certainly want to keep yourself in shape and things like that, but you don't go crazy with any sort of fitness regime, if you will. It's a little more brain power, maybe. Are you using it from that angle, or what do you do to prepare for an event?
No, I actually do a 12-month plan. I do lifting during the winter, and this makes my 5th event this year. So I have a schedule that I stay on as far as carbon up, hydrating, things like that. I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder by any means.
Right.
I'm 48 years old, so I got the dad bod going on, and I actually have the grandpa bod going on now, because I have the first grandbaby. So, but leading up to the event, the main thing with me is making sure my equipment's right, making sure that I don't overtrain, because you obviously need time to recover after training,
Sure.
and just stay in a good mental frame, be loose, and the great thing about it is this is my home course, so I know where those sprinkler heads are.
Yeah. Well said. Ron, what about you? Anything special as far as nutrition or physical fitness that you attack these events with? Do you work out regularly? Is there anything specific that you do to prepare for something like this?
Not as much as maybe some other hitters, but I rely on great guys like Bobby and a friend of mine who lives close to me in Canada there for club repair and putting clubs together. I mean, I need that club to work for my swing, and inches matters a lot in this game. And guys like Bobby and my friend who helps with my clubs, if you're going to be a long drive hitter, you got to make sure you have the right equipment in front of you. And these guys are fantastic at what they do, and it helps me a lot.
Right. Mitch, what about you? Anything specific that you do as far as a physical fitness or nutrition to keep yourself in good shape, so you can be competitive out in an event like this?
Yeah, so my answer is a little different from the rest of them. My background's actually in golf fitness, and so I've done a lot of studying and gotten my background done in that. And so what I do is golf is very much an explosive sport, right? You don't win trophies for walking on the hamster wheel for 5 hours. It doesn't do you any good to be able to do that. So what you have to do is be able to explode, recover. So we train as a power lifter, a sprinter, and somebody that myself, I do yoga on a very regular basis. That way I can carry a large amount of mass without hindering my flexibility. The whole key is to move as efficiently as possible and make your body sequence and generate power as efficiently as possible. That way you can continue to do so throughout rounds.
Right. Well said. Let me ask you guys, and whoever wants to jump in and answer this one is fine by me. If you had your average amateur golfer, I mean, they come to people like myself and other teach professionals out there wanting to know how they can hit it further. How can I get some extra yards? If you were going to advise one of my students, let's say as an example, on how, as a long drive hitters, how they could gain some extra yards, and you were being honest with them, because, I mean, as I mentioned earlier in the program, I don't know if you tuned in or not, but, many of the manufacturers out there have talked about for years about getting, 10, 20, 30 extra yards if you buy this driver or that driver, this piece of equipment. And you guys know as well as I do, certainly equipment can help to a point, but if you don't know how to hit the ball well or how to work the swing properly, you're not going to get those extra yards. But if you were advising a student, whether it be of mine or another teaching professional, on how to truly and honestly hit and get the ball further down the fairway, what would you tell them? What steps would you tell them, and what would you advise them to do? And that's open to anybody.
Find an instructor that understands how to build the clubs to the person's swing, work on your mechanics, and learn the flight characteristics of a golf ball.
And that also goes back to generating power efficiently, right? Every sport generates power the exact same way, from the ground up. Everything is always from the ground up. What's your average amateur? They hit a big slice. Why? Because they're firing improperly. You have to fire properly in order to generate power.
Right. Well said. So why do is it a misunderstanding then by many in the golf business and and I'm not just talking about professionals out on tour or anything like that. I'm talking about with the instruction. Is there a missed dialogue or miscommunication between instructor and students? Is this what's causing a lot of players not to get the best? And again, I'm not saying this is a criticism to my fellow golf instructors out there, but obviously handicaps have not changed a lot over the years. So is there a miscommunication, do you guys think, between instructor and students, or a misunderstanding maybe is a better way to put it? And again, that's open to anybody.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely agree with you that there's a misunderstanding. What it comes from is physical deficiencies that's in every single individual based on injuries and different things like that have led up to those deficiencies. So the whole problem is that the student knows what they want to do, the coach knows what they want to do, but the coach can't actually diagnose the physical deficiencies that is preventing them from accomplishing that goal.
Right, exactly. Now let's get back to the event. Again, this is the inaugural event that you're having here at this particular location. And that, Rick, I'm going to go to you for a second on this, if you can. What's the end goal here? What are you looking to accomplish with this particular event at this location? Obviously, you want to expand into the U.S. and that, but what's your end goal with this? What are you hoping in a perfect world? Come the end of the event on Sunday, and you look back over the weekend, what do you want to see happen?
Well, the first thing that we'd like to see, Ted, is this rain to stop. And then after that, as I said on the onset of our discussion, we'd love to see a great turnout in terms of spectators at Keith Hill. We'd love to see competitors come out new to the sport especially, try it out. As we said initially coming into the interview, it's not that expensive to come out and try, especially in the senior division and the lady division. if you want to give it a shot. And we'd like to see participation from new people. We welcome the return of our competitors that have been to our previous events before. We look forward to seeing them and spending time with them. And, it's going to be a great weekend with some great hitting, some great long balls in the grid, and that competitive spirit that our event generates time after time with a lot of camaraderie that happens throughout the whole weekend.
Fantastic. What about balls that you're hitting? Are you all playing with the same? I mean, is essentially as far as equipment goes, Bobby, if you want to jump in on this and answer. I mean, obviously everybody's going to be looking at different equipment in that, but as far as balls, to keep things equal, is that everybody playing with the same ball, or how is it set up?
Yeah, Rick and Bill have the Pinnacle ball, new ball this year. So it'll be the first time we actually put it in play.
Yeah, it just came out in the market this year.
Pinnacle Rush.
And when everyone hit the same ball, there's two people in a tee box at a time. Balls are marked 1 and 2, and the ball is called the Pinnacle Rush, and it's the first time that we've put it in play in a tournament. So we'll see how it performs.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm going to be praying that the rain blows over. I know that they've had some weather up there, but I believe it's supposed to clear up through tonight and tomorrow. Hopefully, the weatherman's correct, and I'll be praying that your event holds well and that you don't have any difficult weather to contend with. But I'm sure you have a backup plan in the event. I'm sure Bill's got some ideas in his head cooking if you get a little bit of rain delay happening. So maybe doing some, grilling out or something. I'm sure you guys have it. Let me just say this, guys, you do a fantastic job, and I hear lots of great things on these events, as I said in the beginning. And Rick, I'm going to make a point for next year when you come back to this particular event in North Carolina. I'm assuming that obviously you're going to have it at the same venue, and we'll talk well before then. I've got some ideas, and I've been working on trying to get you a sponsor for that particular event, and unfortunately wasn't able to put anything together in time for this year, but I definitely will have a whole year to work on that. But I've got some things that I'll talk to you guys about as well, and I think what I'd like to do and work towards for next year is not only attending the event, but getting some coverage for the event as well, so we through the media and getting out there and helping to spread the word, because you guys do a fantastic job and obviously have a lot of fun, and I want to meet you guys face to face. So I'm hoping to get an invite for next year.
Well, absolutely, Ted. You're invited anytime. You know that, and as a fellow Canadian, your family. So you come on out to our event anytime, and we'll treat you like royalty. You can ride in the back of the bus with us.
Well, I can't. I can't. Sorry, go ahead.
If you can make it down tomorrow, we're having a pig picking at 6:00 at Keith Hills. Come on out and have some barbecue.
I wish I could. Believe me, that's a very tempting offer. Gentlemen, I just want to thank you very much. I'm going to let you go because we've only got a few minutes left here, and then I've got to close off the program. But just very quickly, Rick, just to let everyone know the venue, the dates and times and all that kind of stuff, and where they can go and learn more information on ILDC. Just sort of read that off if you can real quick and let the audience know where they can maybe be more involved in what you're doing.
The event is this weekend, July 9th and 10th at Keith Hills Golf Club in Lillington, North Carolina. And if they want to find out more about the International Long Drive Challenge, it's www.internationallongdrivechallenge.com. And there's some stuff on YouTube as well. And they can always get in touch with Bobby Peterson at the One Stop Power Shop if they want to find out some more information. And Mitch Dobbin and his fitness regime. Mitch, can you give your website there as well, please?
Anybody can contact me at mitchell.dobbin@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to answer anything that they have to say to me, and I can also provide them. But it's also mdgolffitness.com is my golf fitness.
And last but not least, Ted, Ronnie Lampman If you could give your information in terms of a website or some of the things that people can see about your particular trick shot shows and some of the stuff that you do for charity. Can you give Ted some information about that?
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Yeah, I can be reached at lightituplamon@outlook.com. I recently just joined the TGA. It's a premium junior golf association, so we're doing a lot with junior golfers in Canada. And I would also like to say last year was my first year that I got to break out to the World Team Championships in Mexico, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I'm in the pool with former world long drive champions. I'm talking to guys from Kenya. I'm talking to guys from Mexico, South Africa. So if anybody ever wants to have a blast of a lifetime, their event, their World Team event, is unbelievable, and it's the coolest thing ever.
Well, fantastic. On tonight, Golf Talk Live, and be safe out there this weekend. Have a good time. Again, I'll be praying that the weather clears up for you, so you can have a good fun event this year, and without any or certainly unfavorable weather. And Rick, please reach out to me after the event and send me or let me know where I can get some information as far as if you've got any video or anything that you take at the event, and I'll be certainly glad to share that around. But I'll be in touch with you guys in a little while, and we can talk about for next year maybe having me come and do a program at the event and get some additional coverage as well, and also some sponsorship. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail at a later date. But guys, have a fun event this week. And as always, be good to the ladies, because we want to grow that area of the game as well. And continued success, Rick and Bill. And thank you, Ron and Mitch and Bobby for joining me as well. And Bobby, you drive my Canadian friends safely to this event this year, and no unsightly goat pass or any bumpy roads or anything. Because I don't want to get a call or an email saying that you took them over some bad turns or something and caused them to default in competition. So you take good care of my Canadian friends.
Yeah, I'll get them to take some pictures of the accommodations for you.
Sure.
Ted,
Sounds
thanks a lot
good.
for having us on the show again tonight, and once again, Ted, thanks for all your support. We really appreciate it.
Well, all you have to do is reach out anytime. I'm always glad to do it. So, again, very special guests tonight from ILDC. Have a good tournament this weekend, guys, or a good event this weekend, excuse me. And like I said, I'll be praying that the weather is good for you. But again, be safe and have fun, guys. And Bill, try and stay awake if you can. And good luck.
All right, thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Take care.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was my very special guests, Rick Benoit and Bill Stark from ILDC, and a cast of favorites, Mitch, Ron, and Bobby. All sounds like they're getting ready to have a good time and a good weekend. And as I said, hopefully they'll have weather will stay good for them, and that the rain and clouds will pass over and let them have a good event. But sounds like a lot of fun out in North Carolina. And if you go to ILDC.com, I'm sure that you'll get all the information there for the specific event for Long Drive Challenge. Lots of good events. This is the inaugural event, if you will, in North Carolina that they're having this weekend. And it sounds like it should be a lot of fun. And I'm going to try and make a point of getting out there next year and helping them even have a better second year. But good work, guys, as always, and thank you very much. I want to also, again, thank my very special guests on the Coach's Corner panel tonight, Mr. Byron Casper and, of course, Tim Kremer. Thanks, guys, for doing a great job as well. And, again, I apologize to the listeners for the event on Tuesday on the Women of Golf show that Cindy and I had to cancel, unfortunately, but it looks like we've got everything worked out, and I hope that you will join us next Tuesday. We'll have a great guest again in the wings, and I believe we're going to have another Symetra Tour player as well joining us first off. So make sure you tune in next Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on blogtalkradio.com's Women of Golf. Just go to blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf. And then, of course, every Thursday night at blogtalkradio.com. You can tune into Golf Talk Live, and that's from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. Just let me also thank a few sponsors, supporters of the program. Didn't get a chance the last couple of weeks. Been real busy with a lot of things going on, so I just want to get an opportunity to thank some great supporters of the program. Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Jonathan, of course, out in the Pensacola area, has a great golf guide that he's been doing now for over 20 years. He's the owner and proprietor of South Coast Golf Guide, and the editor as well. He puts everything together and has a great publication, as I said, for over 20 years now, I believe 21 or 22 years, in fact. And that's southcoastgolfguide.com is the website if you go there. And you can also find it on Facebook. But if you go there, you can find all the great courses in the southern part of the United States, literally from Texas all the way over here to Florida, and virtually all states in between. And some great tracks that you can find in there. You get some information on there. And if you go to southcoastgolfguide.com, you can see the online version as well. But if you want a copy of the guide, if you're not in the South right now, but you're planning on maybe coming here in the next few months, especially as some of you snowbirds up there and you want, whether it be in Canada or the northern part of the United States, you're planning on coming south to play some great golf, go to southcoastgolfguide.com. And you can request a copy of the guide sent to you. Jonathan will be more than happy to send a copy up. Or you can wait till you come down here and just visit most of your local golf courses and most of your major resorts, as well as the Edwin Watts golf stores. A lot of them carry it as well. You can get a copy there. And if you're looking at some golf in the southeastern part of the United States, make sure you get a copy of the South Coast Golf Guide. So thank you, Jonathan, for bringing that. Meredith Kirk as well. She was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina winner of that pageant, and she's also a great golf instructor. If you go to meredithkirk.com, you can learn more about that, and she's a great LPGA instructor and entered into the Mrs. South Carolina contest, won that, and then went on to the Mrs. USA contest. Didn't win, but finished very prominently in that competition as well. And that was really to help further her brand as well. But great lover of golf out in the Myrtle Beach area, and you can go to meredithkirk.com. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thank you very much for always continuing to help spread the word. Nikki, of course, is a great professional golfer, and we're going to get him on the show. It's just been real tough with schedules to sort of tie it up, and I know I've been talking about this for a few months now, but we are going to get Nikki on the show as well. That's Nikki and his lovely wife, Tiffany Litherland. Thank you for all of your continued support. Mr. Bernie Pinder, of course, from onticgolf.com. Bernie, of course, and his customized putters. Great brand and a great gentleman of the game as well. Great supporter of the program. Thank you, Bernie, for all of your well wishes over the years and your continued support of Golf Talk Live. And, of course, Sean Kelly, owner of linkedgolfers.com. Go to linkedgolfers.com, which is sort of a follow-up of the Linked Golfers off of LinkedIn social media network. And if you go there, there's some great information on linkedgolfers.com. And Sean Kelly, of course, will be more than happy to reach out and point you in the right direction to work and connect with some great people in the golf business. And also, last but not least, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland, my good friend from overseas. I'm sure he'll be tuning into the Open next week and watching some of his fellow Europeans that are out there on the European Tour and be playing in next week's Open Championship. So I'm sure he'll be egging them on as well. But most importantly, of course, I want to thank all of you and take this opportunity to thank the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. As I say every week, I have a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teacher professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stop by, and it's really through their talents and participation and guest appearances that help make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. So in retrospect, let me just say again, thank you, Byron Casper, Tim Kremer, and thanks to the guys, Rick Benoit and Bill Stark from ILDC for doing that so greatly this week. And I will see you guys next week here on Golf Talk Live, 6 p.m. Central, here on blogtalkradio.com network. Thanks, everybody. And also don't forget to tune in next Tuesday with Cindy Miller and I on the Women of Golf show on the blogtalkradio.com network as well. Thanks. God bless everybody and have a great week.